I just want to ask you one thing. How many people do you think will be needed to join the top 1% of American retirees now? $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. Lock in your guess, because when you hear the real number, you make a double judgment. Directly from the latest data from the Federal Reserve, the actual figure is $22.1 million. For a family, 22 million is just to break 1% of Americans 65 to 69. That is what really attracts me. That figure is 6 to 2% above the national threshold of 1%, which means getting rich is one thing, but becoming a wealthy retiree is a completely different sport. Listen to me until you think this video is not for you, because I'm not just taking you through a number. It is a complete breakdown, including your reality, what America's wealthiest retirees are doing differently, and the surprising things the data reveals about who is really at the top. Spoiler, not the person you think. Next, you'll see the exact net worth threshold for each retirement age group, the sixth level of retirees' wealth, and statistics that 62% of retirees admit to not knowing their money. By the end of the video, you'll know exactly where you rank, what the gap looks like, and whether the targeted posts you've been chasing are correct. Let's get started. Chapter 1: Unexpected Numbers. Let's start with the headline numbers, because I want to make sure you really understand where the numbers come from. Nothing is pulled out of thin air, and nothing is a random blog quote. Each number can be traced to the Federal Reserve's Consumer Finance Survey, the most authoritative household wealth dataset in the U.S. The Fed conducts surveys every 3 years, most recently in 2022, and the results were released in October 2023. By the end of 2026, when the next survey declines, this is the data everyone is using, including economists, financial planners, Wall Street, the Internal Revenue Service, and almost all serious analysts in the United States. Here are the results of the survey when isolating retirement age families. For families aged 60 to 64, the threshold of up to 1% is about $17.9 million. Entering the range of 65 to 69, the number jumped to 22.1 million, an absolute peak. From 70 to 74, it fell slightly to 18.8 million, then rose to 19.9 million between 75 and 79. And once it broke through 80, the threshold was set at about 16.2 million. As a result, the top 1% of American retirees have household net worth of $16 million to $22 million, depending on age. Why does the number peak between 65 and 69? Think of it this way. This window represents the transition from the highest earning year, when decades of compound investment return real estate, maximizing 401 KS, corporate equity, and legacy, all appear on the balance sheet at the same time. Since then, the withdrawal began. The minimum allocation required took effect. Medical costs rose. The market did what the market did, and the threshold gradually lowered. But here is what really shocked me the first time I did math. The combined threshold of up to 1% for all age groups in the United States is $13.7 million. So if you are 67 and have $14 million in your name, you are in the top 1% of the country, but well below the top 1% of your peers. In fact, you still need $8.4 million to be in the top 1% of retirees 65 to 69. Let's wait. 1% of Americans is the standard, and 1% of retirees is a completely different standard. And few people talk about the gap. Chapter 2. Why are retirees wealthier than you think? Here is a question worth asking. Why are retirees as a group much wealthier than the general population? Once you actually look at the data, the answer becomes very simple. According to the 2022 Consumer Finance Survey, Americans over the age of 60 hold 60.4% of the total wealth of the United States. In this country, retirees hold $6 of every $10 in net worth. Sit down. It is at this point that time matters, and baby boomers have amassed wealth in the longest bull market in modern American history over the past 40 years. The price is 3 times the annual income, not 7 times. They experienced an internet boom, a real estate recovery, a stock market rally after 2009, and a post-pandemic asset explosion, while their 401k index rose from 700 to more than 5,000. When we talk about the concentration of wealth in the United States, a large part is related not only to the top 1%, but also to age, timing, and who happens to hold these assets when the music is playing. Here is another statistic that surprised me. Between 2019 and 2022, the median household net worth in the United States jumped 37%, the largest 3-year increase in SEF history, as those who already own those assets watch their balance sheets swell. The stock market climbs, real estate explodes, and money pours into the system. But that is exactly what makes people uncomfortable. Income is unevenly distributed. The median represents the median, while the top of the distribution moves more positively upward. When people say Americans are wealthier than ever, they are technically right, but they are also hiding something. In 2023, the median net worth of all households in the United States was $192,084, with an average of $1.06 million. The ratio of the average to the median is more than 5 to 1, and when the gap between the average and the median widens so much, it tells you something specific. The rich are sharply increasing the overall average, and most are far from that. Chapter 3. 6th floor, retirement wealth. Let's start tactics now. Because if all I do is throw you $22 million, it is useless. What you really want to know is where you fit and where you rank. According to Federal Reserve data, Americans of retirement age are divided into 6 clear levels, and I'll show you each so you can know exactly where you are now. The first level is the economically disadvantaged, with a net value of $69,500 to $50,000. About a quarter of retirees live here and rely almost entirely on Social Security, now averaging about $1,900 a month. Any unexpected expense, whether it is hospital visits, roof repairs, or car breakdowns, can sweep them away. That level is why old age poverty in the United States remains a real problem in 2026. The second level is the middle and lower levels, with a net value of about $50,000 to $410,000. These retirees often own their own homes, sometimes with manageable mortgages and extended Social Security, and modest savings to make ends meet. They are not in crisis, but luxury, which happens to be the largest single retiree in the country, is no longer on the table. The third floor is the upper middle level, with a net value of $410,000 to $1.52 million. This is the median for households 65 to 74, because the median net worth for this age group is $409,900. If your net worth is around $400,000 at age 70, you are actually a typical American retiree, neither below average nor struggling, right in the middle. People in this class tend to buy homes, pay back money, have decent investments, have enough travel flexibility, and occasionally splurge. The fourth floor is the affluent, with a net worth of $1.52 million to $2.99 million. And that is where everything starts to get really comfortable. Diversified portfolio, real financial breathing room, unexpected $30,000 medical bills not ruining the year. They may help their grandchildren attend college, own vacation properties, or hire financial advisors. The fifth floor is the top 10%, with a net value of $2.99 million to $13.7 million. These retirees work with private wealth management companies to manage complex tax strategies, intergenerational planning, and long-term care budgets. To be in the top 10% of retirees aged 60 to 64, you need a net worth of about $3.04 million, which will fall to $2.54 million by age 80. Note that the band remains stable. Once you cross 3 million, assuming you don't do anything reckless, you actually buy yourself lifelong stability. Top 1% of Tutiao's Tier 6 revenue is $16 million to $22 million, depending on age. About 1.3 million households in the United States belong to this group, which dominates the financial media, although it accounts for only a small part of the population. So it is time for a courage check. At what level are you sitting now? And more important, at what level do you really need to live the life you want? These are two very different questions. Chapter 4, Millionaire Myth. I want to do something here that I don't think anyone else will do, which breaks the myth of who will really get rich after retirement. Most believe that the top 1% of retirees include trust children, hedge fund executives, and family fund heirs. The data tell a different story. As early as 2019, Ramsey Solutions, a financial planning firm, conducted the largest millionaire study in American history. Millionaires were the largest sample size in the United States at the time, and when you really sat with them, the results were a little surprising. The top 5 careers among American millionaires are not what you might expect. Engineers, accountants, teachers, managers, lawyers. Teacher, number 3 is in. Not an investment banker, not a tech founder, not a doctor. Teacher, only 20% have a meaningful inheritance, meaning 80% create their own wealth. Only 15% have held senior leadership positions in their careers. Most of them in the middle. That is what really attracts me. 70% of millionaires earn less than $100,000 a year on average while working. They are not high earners. Their incomes are stable. So how did they do it? The pattern is repeated. They use their 401k plans or any employer plan they have the most exposure to. They save and invest out of plan. They diversify. They don't chase a single stock or hot trend. They start early. They stick to every decline, including the internet crash of 1987 and 2008 and the pandemic of 2020. That is the whole formula. No secrets, no accounts, no insiders, just decades of consistent application of discipline, while everyone else panicked at the bottom and chased performance at the top. America's wealthiest retirees are not lottery winners. They were patient. Chapter 5. The real retirement crisis nobody talks about. Let me be honest with you for a minute, because the other side of the story is much darker. And if I show you only an inspiring version, I will hurt you. Here are the numbers, not shown on the thumbnail. Only 54.3% of us households held retirement accounts in 2022, according to the Congressional Research Service. Almost half of the countries have number 401k, no Iraq, only what they keep in checking accounts or bundle at home. Only 4.6% of households with retirement accounts have balances of more than $1 million. When people talk about needing $1 million or $2 million to retire, they describe fewer than 5% of households with retirement accounts. Mr. Schroeder's American Retirement Survey 2025 is more blunt. Only 25% of retirees believe they have enough money to retire, and 6 to 2% openly admit not knowing how long their money will last. No, they're a little nervous. They really don't know. Meanwhile, a survey of Americans by Northwest Mutual asked how many they thought needed to retire comfortably, and the answer was $1.26 million. These are so-called magic numbers floating in everyone's mind. That is the number. The median real net worth of Americans, 65 to 74, is $410,000, meaning Americans pursue about 3 times the comfort goals of the average retiree. The real retirement crisis in America is the gap between what people think they need and what they actually have. Not the top 1%, but the middle. These people did everything they were supposed to do, donating to 401k plans, buying homes, raising children, waking up at 67, and wondering if they could live to 90 without exhaustion. Chapter 6. What does net worth mean? Let me pause to clarify one important thing, because the Fed's data misses a huge puzzle that most YouTube doesn't mention. Here is the math. When SCF calculates net worth, home equity, retirement accounts, including 401k and IRA, taxable brokerage accounts, cash savings, other property and business interests, subtract debt like mortgages, car loans, credit cards, student loans, and whatever you owe. That gives you net worth. Here is what doesn't matter: future Social Security benefits, pensions, and annuity income streams. Why does this distinction matter? Imagine a retired teacher in Illinois earning $60,000 a year on a pension. The capitalized value of this pension is basically between $1.2 million and $1.5 million, depending on how you discount future cash flows. But on SCF's balance sheet, pensions show zero. The same problems hit Social Security. Retirees earn an average of about $22,000 a year, sometimes more if they delay their applications, and the capitalized lifetime value and current value can easily land somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. on the net worth scorecard. It doesn't exist. Keep this quirk in mind when you compare yourself to these percentile thresholds. A retired federal worker with a $50,000 pension and a paid-up home may write a low net worth on paper. That is actually financially safer than a tech executive sitting on $3 million in stock and burning $20,000 a month. Net worth is a useful benchmark. It is not the whole picture. It is also worth noting that the SEF reports total net worth, not after tax. If you hold a $1 million traditional IRA, you don't actually control $1 million. You control $1 million minus anything the IRS took when you withdrew the money. Depending on your tax bracket, this can mean a loss of 22 to 37% from the top, which also makes the headline numbers misleading. Chapter 7. What changed in 2025 and 2026? Let's talk about what is happening now, because the 2022 data already shows its age, and a lot has changed in the past 3.5 years. The Fed's next survey, the 2025 SEF, is expected to be released by the end of 2026, which puts us in this strange data gap. Anyone who gives you a 1% figure by 2026 is either adjusting for inflation in 2022 or making estimates, including me, including everyone. Here is what we know about the changes that have taken place since 2022. The S&P 500 has climbed sharply since the survey began, and despite high interest rates, bond yields above 20-year levels, and inflation cooling from its peak in 2022, house prices in most markets have remained basically stable, rising about 12 to 14% since data collection. What does this mean for a threshold of up to 1%? That standard is almost certainly high. The $22.1 million peak we covered before, in real dollars in 2026, it may be close to $24 million to $26 million. That is an estimate. We won't know the actual numbers until the Fed releases its 2025 SCF later this year. This is an interesting data point for the retirement planning platform, Border. The average net worth of Bolding users is just over $3 million. This is an optional group that is very concerned about retirement, and it can use a planning platform, so it does not represent the whole country, but it does give you a sense of the actual location of people in the financial world. 3 million is new comfort, not 1.26 million. Chapter 8. Questions you should ask. This is where I want to give you the script. Everyone who clicked on the video came in and wanted to know one thing. What are the conditions for entering the first 1%? My answer is 16 million to 22 million, depending on age. But that is the wrong question. That is the right question. Personally, what do I need to retire safely? The top 1% is a measure of vanity, telling you how to compare, but it doesn't tell you if it will get better. Statistically, a $500,000 retiree with no debt, a home paid off, a $30,000 pension, and modest spending habits is better off than a $2 million retiree with a Manhattan mortgage, 2 taxis, and $15,000 a month in fixed expenses. If your spending doesn't match your assets, the percentile ranking makes no sense. When you finish watching the video, I don't want you to just think, wow, I am not in the top 1%. I want you to ask 3 questions when you walk away. Question 1. What is my actual retirement fee? Not some calculator estimates, but the money you actually spend today has multiplied in 25 to 30 years. Question 2. What source of income did I bring? Social Security, pensions, rental income, and part-time work add up. Question 3. What is the gap, no matter how much you spend, minus your guaranteed income? This gap is something your portfolio must make up for. Multiply that gap by 25, and that may be where you need to invest. If your gap reaches $40,000 a year, you need about $1 million in investable assets. If the gap reaches $80,000, it will cost $2 million. If your gap widens to $200,000 a year, you need $5 million. None of these numbers require you to be in the top 1%. This is the fact that no one inserts thumbnails. The top 1% is interesting, but that is not your goal. Let's take this all the way home. The top 1% of American retirees ages 65 to 69 hold a net worth of $22.1 million. Here is the headline, a surprising number that might show you the video. But there is a deeper story. Most retirees fall far short of that figure, with a median of about $410,000 for Americans ages 65 to 74. Less than 5% of households with retirement accounts of more than $1 million, and 62% admitting they don't even know how long their money will last. At the same time, it is not doctors, executives, or trust heirs who really accumulate wealth for retirement. They are teachers, engineers, and accountants who have been saving money for 40 years. And don't panic when the market falls. The system is carefully designed to make you feel backward. Thumbnails, retirement calculators, headlines point to numbers that most people will never type, and then sell you anxiety. Don't be fooled. Know your numbers, know your gaps, know your sources of income. Measure yourself by your life, not someone else's spreadsheet. If this video helps you see retirement more clearly, do me a favor. Click on the subscription, post a comment about where you are or what your goal is, and share it with people who are losing sleep because of the number of retirees. The more accurately you understand your position, the less scary the whole thing is. See you next time.